Hopefully everybody is joining us because you have an interest in, at some level, either becoming a beginner in use of Monitor, or maybe taking your beginner or intermediate to the next level and having some advanced tips. So I'm going to hopefully be able to provide some insight from all those different levels as we go along. But the Monitor, before we jump right in, the Monitor application is designed to help you monitor registration. A clever name, I know. But tracking registration, whether it be fall, I know summer is starting for most schools, but we're able to track summer, spring, anything really that you're registering for. The idea being everyone can have access and be able to track on a regular basis how well those courses are filling, or maybe not filling so well, and how can we be as reactive and as proactive to our schedule as possible, with the idea being we want to create as much access so our students can progress and graduate, but we also want to make sure we are working our resources to the most efficient way possible. So that's really what that application is designed to provide to you. And again, I know you're all probably coming in at different levels, some of you even with just an interest in what in the world this is. And so I'll hopefully be able to deliver some insight from all of those perspectives. So first things first, we want to sign into the application. So if you do have access and a user account, feel free to go ahead and follow along with me. I'm a very hands-on person, so if it were me, I'd want to log in and be watching as we go along. Plus, it will help you give us some really good kind of questions to ask as you go along, as you're looking at your data as well. So get logged in here real quickly. We will jump in. See, welcome to Ad Astra. Your site will look similar to mine, may not have all of the applications that you're viewing, but today we're here for Monitor. So we're going to click on Monitor and pull that information up. Give it a second to pull the data. You'll see up here at the very top, the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to select the term that you're interested in. So, and if you're interested in multiple terms, select summer and fall if you'd like. Once you've done that one time, when you come back into the site, it's generally going to remember that, which is why I didn't have to select a term. We're going to go ahead and select the fall term. That's what we want to talk about today. You can see that there are options to select different campuses. So if you're interested in one specific campus, you can hone in on that. If you're interested in all of them, you can multi-select, and then you can even get super creative and you can build what I sometimes call a super campus. So if I want to see how many sections I'm offering at all 5 of my campuses, there's a setting inside of the settings tab that kind of your super users can go in and configure an all campus. And you'll see that here in the combined campus. So this takes both data sources and combines it into one. So now I can toggle between any of those as I go along. And if you've got some interest in how does that get set up, just let us know. We can provide some insight for that as well. As we go along here, we want to check here. And we're going to talk a little bit about filtering. The filtering information is really kind of the big key to accessing the data. So what you're going to find is when you're coming into this information or into the site, you're going to probably likely want to narrow down what you're looking at. So here I've got this wide open. I'm looking at our test site, which has got all kinds of courses being offered, but I may only be responsible for one set of courses. And if that's the case, I want to go ahead and I want to build myself a filter. And so if I go to the far right here, I'm going to see this little drop down 3 lines here. I can expand that, and that opens what I have it filtered to currently, which is the fall term. So I'm just going to delete that out because I'm going to show you real quickly how to build a very simple filter to access to a group of courses. So it's pretty simple. We're going to go subject equals, and in this case, we're going to be English. And so I can do subject equals English. Perhaps I'm in charge of, be a good combination there, English and accounting. I could do an English or an accounting filter. And I could continue on with every other course or subject that I am responsible for. Now, the nice thing about this is once you set it up one time, you only have to set it up the once, and it's going to work and be there for you for the future. Just a real quick save here. Call this English and ACC. Save my filter. And now I'm going to have that go done. And now all of a sudden I have multiple filters to pick from. Now this is user specific. So for everyone who might be jumping in their site to see if I just built you an English and accounting filter, I did not. It's specific to this site, to my user and my user only. Now, what I can do is I can come in here with the little 3 drop downs and I can share out those filters. So if you're real creative and you've come up with some interesting filters that you want to share out with your academic unit, you can go in here and you can select from a group of users and I can share that filter with myself, but you get the idea. And then they can come in and those users will see that English filter being shared out with them as well. So really only one person has to create that filter and then can share that information.
Yeah, and Angela, one thing I'll throw out there that was just a couple of questions actually just popped in that you're probably getting to as well. But one of them is just around, the filter and kind of is it always there or is it just for the term you initially input? And I think really quickly, it's really just based on the parameters that you put, correct? So if you've got, no term selected, then that's going to be a great filter to where you can use it anytime. You just need to pick the term you're in those future terms that you want to look at. So that would be it's just based on the parameters you have out there. And then Angela, the other one on department, in choosing that, it's really just directed towards the courses that are tied, correct, into that department?
Yep. And this is brand new filter capability now. So this is what we're seeing for this particular school as department fields. And you can go in and select or multi-select here. So the idea being you no longer will have to do the subject equals, subject equals, subject equals. If you're in charge of a set department that's been established in your student information system, you'll be able to just go down and select that department and move forward. Now, something interesting, because that literally came in overnight since our last training, but I've been on the phone earlier with a couple other schools that they said that'll make it so much easier, and they still envision building filters, but they would just select those different departments because they may want a sub-department, and then they would save those out and share those with their user. So I still think there's probably going to be this need to create some sort of grouping of courses that you would be interested in.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thanks, Angela.
Not just that, I'll show you here while we're still on filtering, all the different choices that you can select from. And inside of Monitor, one of the more popular areas is looking at enrollment ratios, enrollments, section counts. So here you can set up parameters that would include show me English and accounting and those with enrollment ratios greater than 95%, or show me English and accounting that have more than 5 sections. So there are ways for us to go, or for you to go in and stack that filter that you've created with some additional parameters. And again, then you're saving those, you're not having to build them again, and you can go in, grab that English accounting 95% or greater filter, and I'm just looking at those courses this particular day. So there's a lot of really creative opportunities there inside of the filtering for you to be able to use. And the biggest place I feel like that people get tripped up inside of Monitor comes down to, do I have filters on or not? And so this little blue dot indicates that you've got some level of a filter occurring. So just to kind of keep an eye on that, if you're like, why can't I find the criminal justice class I'm looking for? Oh, well, that's because I've got this English and accounting filter turned on, because it may look like virtually not too much is there. Another best practice that I would share, just kind of to tag into what Chris was saying, I try not to build my filters with a term inside of them. And that way you can use them spring, summer, fall. Align, any of our applications, and they're not term specific, especially since we have this nice little drop down for the term. But if you really want to go out and build a special spring or fall 21 term that's just for English classes, go right ahead. Just know that that will be restrictive to that, and you just have this drop down. Same thing with if you wanted to put campuses in there and build out that filter so you wouldn't have to click these buttons. That's another option too. And don't worry if right about now you're like, oh my gosh, this is just a lot of information. I spend a lot of time here because I really believe I want you to be able to access the data as quickly as possible. And if I can help direct how you minimize that and really get to what you're looking for, then everything else should be smooth sailing within the application. But if right about now you're still thinking about that, this little question mark here is going to open up a tab and help you with all of the filtering. So if you can't remember if it's an or, an and, all of this information is great in these help articles that we've set up for you. I'll show you a couple other areas that you can get some support too as we go along, but that little question mark is right there to help answer that question. And it also does a good job of kind of red and blue. There's some color coding there if you throw an error in your codes and things as well. So I'm going to go and use my English filter here as we start looking at courses. So that'll get us through filtering. All that said, one of the easiest ways and probably the most common ways that you're going to use Monitor is you're going to come in looking for a very specific course. You've heard, or the wait lists are getting full, or everybody is saying we've got to open another section of this course, and you want to do some research on what that looks like. This find is the easiest way to do that. So let's say I want to look for English 1300. I've got that. And I can just come in and I can look at what I'm offering and go forward from there. And so that seek and find is really a good resource for you to be able to see exactly what you're looking for. That brings us to how frequent is the data updated? Everybody's screen should have a little grayed out updated date here, adjusted to the time zone that you're on. But this will tell you the most recent import and updated set of information that we have. So if ever you're coming along and you see that it's been 2, 3, 4 days from that, now's the time to get the little, we'll talk about Astrobot in a little bit, but get some, or to open up a ticket, find out why your data has not been refreshed, because it should be refreshing on a very regular basis, usually within 24 hours. A couple other quick tips before we start to navigate the courses themselves. Any of these headers here allow you to sort and filter as you go along. So if I wanted to see, I've got my English filter on. If I wanted to see my highest filling classes or my lowest filling classes, I can toggle right there. So I don't have to build a filter that says that. Instead, I can just do a sort and see that information as well. Same thing here in the sections. If I want to see where is my highest number of sections, let me start there with those courses, and then I can narrow from there. Right about now, many of you may be saying, but I don't have those little section bubble dots here, like I'm seeing on your screen. This is a user-specific feature, and it does require that each user go and turn that on inside of the settings. So how that occurs is you're going to go up here to this little person, go to settings, and for many of you, you're not going to see a lot of these same details, but go to the Monitor tab and click the enablement box. That's going to allow you to view the section breakouts and list, and you can return to Monitor a couple different ways, but just drop this little 9 box here, and that'll take you back to where you were. It may still not populate at that point. If so, this little refresh button will be your friend. Anytime you're seeing a report error or a screen or a graph kind of erroring out, do just a real quick refresh on it. Sometimes just there's a lot of data loading, and that refresh will help that too. Avoid you having to log out and log back in. So if that doesn't populate for you, click this little button. because I've yet to meet too many people that don't enjoy being able to look at these section dots here. So what all does this mean? Let me walk you through that real quickly here. And this is a good example here because we can see all the different options. So a completely colored in circle is going to indicate that that registration is something we call high, meaning that it is higher than 86% to 150% or whatever. And you can hover over it and see the exact percentage and the exact number of students in the course as of May 20th, and the number and the course cap on that section. So I don't even have to get into a lot of the course details. Right here, I can see that information. Those partially colored in circles are going to indicate on track, and that's anything between 25% and 85%. And you can kind of see that range there too, huh? 25 to 70 there. And then anything with that kind of an open circle is going to be less than that 25%. You can see they've got quite a few lower filling sections, zero filled sections, and then a few that are higher as well. And again, we can sort by that if we wanted to, and we can very just quickly hover through and look at what registration looks like across those courses. I'm so used to kind of pausing as I go along. Chris, feel free to interrupt me if you've got any great questions. Otherwise,
there's some really good questions. No, it's awesome soaking it in, just kind of answering as we go. You know, I think one thing I'll just throw out there is, you know, for those questions that are very institutional specific, and so for some of you that have asked questions, get prepared for probably this response in writing here in just a minute too. But you know, we've gotten assigned, your institution has an assigned client success consultant like an Angela of the world. I'll put a link into the chat that will take you to our support page that has a map with your corresponding client success consultant. I think, you know, for some of the things around having issues with seeing data in the site or not seeing the right data, or wanting to know kind of the cadence and interval for how often things can get updated, things like that, you know, those are conversations that you definitely want to be having with your client success consultant. And so I'm going to provide that link into the chat once again, just so you have that. So get prepared for my written response to that too, to you, but know that I'll be posting that, and for a lot of these very specific questions to your environment, you'll need to work with your consultant for that. But that's, yeah, otherwise, Angela, I love the cadence and the cruise. It's going well.
I think what Chris was saying is feel free to direct all questions to Chris and he'll be happy to answer all of those questions.
That's exactly what I was saying. Yes, just ask me and I will have thoughts.
I don't know what
it's right. He emailed me. I'm fine with that. I'll have lots of thoughts. I don't know if they'll be the thoughts people want to hear. I have lots of thoughts on Disney. Angela knows that. So I could talk about that for hours, but maybe we'll set up a separate webinar for my Disney download. So yeah, perfect. But I'm going to throw that in the chat so you guys can know who your client success person is.
Yep, and definitely keep those questions coming as we go along. And hopefully I'll cover a lot of it anyways, but I always want, as much as you can try to stump us, the better off, keep us on our toes. Okay, so I think that brings us to the drill-in of the course. This is what you're looking at and seeing on the main screen. But let's go dive into the course and really look at what kind of details I have here. So perhaps everything I've seen so far isn't helping me to make that kind of final decision on, do I want to add a section? Do I want to take something away? Should we be concerned if this course is filling quickly? Here's where I can get really some answers to that. You know, what does that progression of enrollment look like? Did all of a sudden we just get a big spike, or has it been going pretty steadily through? So this first little top part here gives you really a high level look at, again, those statuses that I mentioned. Low, below 25% for this course. You can see the exact percentage here. We can look at the enrollment to the enrollment cap. Those are coming straight from your student information system. You'll see here, if you're not real familiar with that enrollment ratio term, we use that a lot at Adastra, and that is the enrollment to the cap of the course, nothing to do with the room space. And we're driving a lot of our decisions off of how well those are filling. Sometimes you'll hear us and even myself refer to it as a fill rate. So we're really just looking at how well are those courses filling. 42 sections, looking at that special campus that was built that combined the two campuses together. And then here's the start date. What I like here too is we're starting to count that down, right? How many days until the start? That's really what we're looking at here. So I'm 95 days out from the start. That's going to look different. My reactions to that is going to be a little different if this is the same result 15 days from the start, right? I may not leave this many seats out there if I've got, you know, I've through all my freshman orientations now and I still have, you know, 100 seats that haven't been taken. How I react to that data is going to be different than on day 94, 93, counting down. So I can see my enrollment progression. This will give me the exact enrollment day to day, along with the seats that I have made available, which you can see they started out higher a while back. They've dropped that down a little bit as they've gone along. And then we jump over here and we look at the actual progression of the enrollment as to this 85% enrollment ratio mark. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as I go through, but really that's sort of what I call a kind of a red flag, kind of a warning signal that's going to give us a little bit of time to react before we get a course all the way to capacity. So one of the things that I'm sure lots of you are familiar with is our focus on student success and making sure that everyone who needs to get in and get access to a course can get there. And so we want to leave a little bit of a cushion for being able to register up until the last minute in courses. And if we, you know, 95 days out, this course was at 100%, we wouldn't have any seats in opportunity there. So want to make sure that we can identify kind of a alert system per se that says, okay, at 85%, let's start making some decisions. So it doesn't necessarily mean that 85% fill is a bad thing. It just means, hey, we might want to take a little bit of action or at least take notice that this course is filling, and you know, maybe there is or isn't anything that we can do other than just to keep it, to make sure that we at least leave a seat open all the way to the start. And maybe that won't even be possible for some of you. So we're kind of tracking that. I'm going to circle back here and talk a little bit about notifications in a minute with that red line. Now let's talk about some of our newer features here. Enrollment progression with modality. So we now have the opportunity with a couple of quick customizations inside of your site or configurations inside of your site. You can help us identify the different ways that you are offering courses, the different modalities that it's being offered in, and then we can track that information across registration. So for this particular course, they're running online and hybrid, and that school decided what online and hybrid meant to them. So they decided that based on how they were coding, this is how they wanted to track it, and they're able to see the sections side by side that are grouped together as hybrid and that are grouped together as online. We can see that by a percentage, and then we can also look at that as a percentage of the overall fill rate as well. I'm going to show you a little bit more modality as we go through, but this has been really key. I tell a lot of people that I don't think COVID was the driving force for our interest in modality. We have been hearing from institutions long before COVID. I'd love to be able to track online. How well are our online classes filling, or hybrid? And now we've got all kinds of different names for things thanks to COVID. But for a very long time, institutions have been asking us, how can we differentiate and how can we better track so that we can get more insight into students' preferences, instructor preferences, and all of these things that can come from having more access to data. So I certainly don't think this was a product of COVID in and of itself, but I think COVID accelerated the need and the urgency for us to get that level of insight to institutions so that they can start to make those decisions, because some are now, you know, I think the way that we educate has certainly been kind of, we started to rethink some of the modalities and the ways that we're looking at and trying to bring that education to students as a result of that. So the more data that we can collect and start to provide to institutions, the better. So really excited to be able to introduce this. I will say, if you're looking at your screens and it kind of says NA and there's like black bars on it, just reach out to your client success person that Chris was mentioning, we'll help you get that configuration set up real quickly. It'll refresh the next day and you'll be able to take full advantage of that modality tracking too. So it's just a couple of quick settings and you're in good shape to be able to start to see that insight. Okay. I can kind of continue down here and show you the ability to look at section level enrollment. Also another thing that was long in the works. We were always looking at enrollment ratios across the course, which wasn't near as telling as if I can get into the individual sections and see that, you know, most of my, you know, 100 level sections are filling, you know, are already full, but my other ones, which may be mapped to my evening classes, aren't as full. So I can see that level of information section to section. And you'll also watch me kind of expand and contract this here, which just allows me to get a better view of the data points that I'm looking at. So if you're thinking, I'm not really sure what 170 means or what that correlates to my institution here, when you're at this section screen, I always find it best to jump over here. There's a little tab here right next to the courses, and we can click on that. And that's going to give you everything, hopefully, that you want to see, and maybe even more around the individual sections. So you've got section codes, you've got campuses, you've even got rooms, the number of students registered so far, when does it start and end, when does it run, instructors, meeting types, and then even that modality feature that we were talking about as well. And you'll see here, I'll scroll down because obviously that's a very large list of sections. You just click for more and it will continue to load that larger list for this particular school. One nice feature here too is you'll see a couple of places inside the application, this little arrow line bar here. You hover over it, says the word export. This is going to give you the chance to export. When you see this screen, typically it's going to dump everything that you're seeing here into an Excel spreadsheet, and a few cases there's a few other tables even that are hidden that you're able to view too. So if you really love Excel, we've still put a few features out there. Obviously, hopefully by now you're starting to see we want you inside, interacting inside of the application. But for those that really love Excel and pivot tables, we want to be able to bring some of that reporting to you too. And so you can do a quick export and extract this information. So that's shown right here, just a jump over from the default tab, which is course. Go back there and we're going to continue scrolling down and arriving at my favorite stop, which is the historical enrollment progression. What you're looking at here is a term over term comparison of the actual enrollment on that given day. So on day 22, between fall 21 and fall 20, how many students did we have registered? So I'm able to go in and say, okay, here's where I'm at today. Here are my 2 data points. I'm better than I was this time last year. Here's where I ultimately end up. I can even slide this over and show you really, you know, negative 23 days out. Here's the ultimate enrollment that we reach. So this information is driven off of us at Ad Astra collecting snapshots in time of that data. So if you've been with us for a long time, you may have 2 or 3 or 4 years worth of data. It looks like a colorful rainbow there at the bottom. For the vast majority of you, you're going to see 1 to 2 terms, especially if you've just been with us for a short period of time. Even though we're bringing in, you'll hear us talk about bringing in 5 years worth of data when we do kind of our analysis. This is dependent on us bringing those imports in on a regular basis so that we can capture in time the exact enrollment within these courses. So that's a little bit more specific, and it just requires us to have a little bit more time with you to collect that information. So something to look forward to this time next year, you're going to have another data point that's really going to give you, in my opinion, a lot of, if we could predict the future, some of that insight into just grounded in reality. I hear a lot in working with institutions, this kind of wait and sees, or all of our students register at the last minute. And so we may look like we have lots of space right now, but let's just wait and see. And 2 weeks before the start, all of a sudden it's gonna spike up. Now, if this was a normal year, and fall 21 and fall 20 were both identical and there was no such thing as COVID, boy, wouldn't everybody's lives be different, right? So what I'm about to say, take with a grain of salt. I know fall 20 was not the way that we would have seen in 19 and 18 and 17. But what I love about this is that I'm able to go in and see, okay, well, we can wait and see, and wait and see is going to get me roughly about 500 students if it's the same as roughly what I've done in previous years. And for those that are fortunate to have a couple other years, great. But if I just go to that, that's probably what I'm looking at. So should I make some decisions sooner, knowing that that's where I'm going to go to? You know, do I have enough? Do I have too much? This just allows me to very quickly, you know, in one application, see so much information to help me make better decisions moving forward. So my favorite feature, and when you can see it with 2 or 3 terms, it's really very powerful. But even just right here at your fingertips to see where you were at this time last year, I think is super helpful. I talked to lots of schools and they're like, oh, we've got the report, because I'll ask, you know, how well is your fall registration doing so far? Well, this is where we're at this time last year. This is super powerful to be able to see this at the course level beyond looking at it at an institution level or my college or my department. I can get down to those individual courses and maybe identify where there are opportunities for us to target student groups that haven't gotten registered, right? Why is it that all of our business courses are really behind where they were this time last year, but all of our gen ed is flourishing? So maybe there's a group of students that we could look at. So I just love it. I think it's great information, and hopefully you will find that as well. Okay, so that brings us down here to the bottom where you saw I ran a little test yesterday, but we're going to talk about the notifications and the messaging features, communication tools that we have embedded inside the application. And if I scroll up here a little bit, you'll see that send a message, type at to mention someone has always been there. So no matter where I'm at on the screen, I can immediately plug in and I can do a little select from my group of users and send a message about whatever I'm looking at here on the screen. So perhaps I want to tell Chris, it looks like we maybe should get ready for this major influx of registration and add another section, or let's switch this hybrid to an online. I can send that message and that will alert that person. We'll just show you this one live too. That will do a couple things. It's going to send an email to your institutional email of the person that you're reaching out to. It's going to day and time stamp it right here inside the application. And it's going to send a little notification button here as well. So the bell's going to go off, the email's going to go off, and we're going to preserve it here. So this allows us the opportunity to take and bring online some of that back and forth communication that we have about courses. You know, should we switch the instructor? Should we change the day and time? You could internalize a lot of your communication system inside of here. You know, change request forms and emails back and forth, Excels and Google documents, all those different ways that we're tracking things within the schedule. If an institution wanted to, you know, say, this is how we're going to adopt, we're going to use our communication within the Ad Astra products, you certainly could do that. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this goes for the shared filters or anything else that you're out there, when you're looking at that list of users, if the person that you are looking for is not on the list, no Chris, you probably have kind of a point person for Ad Astra internally at your campus. If you don't, same resource Chris was mentioning, or the consultants can reach out. It's just a matter of setting up a user account. So anyone and everyone can have a user account. Don't feel like you're limited there, but if you don't see that person on the list, let us know, let your contact person know, and we'll get the user account set up so that they can start receiving your messages.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably one of the, I agree with you. I think historical enrollment progression is awesome. I agree. That does involve having a couple of terms in the system, which it may for some people take a little bit to get there, but I think it's, once you have the data, so powerful. I think the collaboration piece too is something that I always hone in on and really love, because, you know, especially now that a lot of institutions operating more virtually than they ever have, and maybe will continue to in certain respects. Like just being able to have that one place from an audit trail perspective, not having to dive through long email threads or set up, you know, the 15 to an hour long meeting to talk about one section of one course or those kinds of things. This can be a really great way to collaborate around those pieces. And like I said, and I know Angela said this before too, like what a great way to be able to mitigate as much as possible, like late cancellations, late adds, by knowing the data around how courses are filling and being able to make those changes earlier on in the process than having to wait. So but I love like being able to just collaborate and have a conversational tool. Probably one of my favorite pieces of it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we've got all kinds of best practices and information inside of the community that would help, you know, if you're interested in some of that, like talking to your peers about how they've adopted some of those practices as well. Let's talk a little bit about notifications, then I'll go over the Astrobot and community features that we've got as well. Snap Monitor was a product of something we used to do back in the day called snapshot reports, and it was just a way to kind of share this same information in a really scaled down kind of Excel spreadsheets that we passed around to people. But as a result of that, we talked to a lot of schools and they said, you know, we don't necessarily need to look at all the courses. We want to focus in on these key courses, whether it be their freshman classes, gen ed requirements, orientation groupings, whatever. Each school had a little bit of different thought on what they were interested in. And we even called them watch list, right? How do you kind of keep an eye on those courses? So one of the features that we were excited to add into Monitor was the ability to receive some notifications. So you can go in, individual users can go in and select courses that they want to be alerted on, and we can share out with you updates that, you know, that are updates on those courses. So I'll show you it in action. The first thing you do is you click the notify me button. It is course specific, not term specific. So if you want to look at Comp 1 for the combined campuses, I'm going to click this button. If I wanted to look at it for just Mahomes, I'm going to go back onto the first screen and just pick that one. You can multi-select here. So I'm going to go back to Monitor and show you that if I just want to look at everything, I could click this little button here and I could just start getting notifications. So what am I getting myself in for here by clicking that notification? Notifications are designed to help you, to alert you for those high filling courses. So remember I said I go back to the 85%. So when courses reach that 85% mark, you are going to get a notification saying English 1301 registration is now high, and the exact enrollment and enrollment ratio is going to be shared with you. It's going to come to your institutional email address, and you're going to get a little pop-up here as well. But we know that, you know, as much as we hope that everybody's in Monitor 24 hours a day, that's probably not going to happen. So it's not just driven through the app, it is driven through your email address. And it is combined. So let's say I go out and I mark all the English classes, and tomorrow half the English courses hit 85%. We're in good shape. We're excited because lots of registrations coming through. I'm going to get one email with all those courses listed there. So we're alerting you when it's high. We're also alerting you when you add sections. So if you react to that and it's no longer high, I've added another section, we're going to say, hey, guess what? English is no longer high. You've added a section, 20 more seats. And then if it goes high again, you'll get another alert. We're also going to, if it just drops, even if you don't add sections, but the registration drops below 85%, you're going to get a notification there too. So 3 different kind of alerts for those high filling courses. You can turn them on and off at any time. And I now have this on for 1301 for summer, fall, spring, anything I've got registering, I'm going to get alerted for, unless I click that button and ask it to stop notifying me. And no, you can't log into maybe the dean or someone else's account and mark everything you want them to see. I've had some people ask about that. How do we go in and kind of push those out to other users? At least not yet. The individual users got to go in, turn on those alerts. If you don't turn them on, you don't get alerted. It's really that simple. You turn them off if it stops. And we only send that email out one time and one time only. So you're not going to get every day that it's at 85%. We're not just going to keep reminding you it's 85, 85, 85. Please do something. It's going to be that one time. And that was a lot of words for probably what's 3 little bullet points for the notification system, which brings me to the little Astrobot guy here. He's your resource and link to all the questions and answer or questions and feedback and the community, every place that you can go. And we've popped it right there into the application. So you don't have to always reach out to someone at Astra too, and who is the person that I should be asking how to do this information. You can actually click on the Astrobot. I always start off by going to the little graduation cap here, and that's going to be a link to the support center, but just a real quick way. And I always like to start with this as monitor notifications. So if I can't remember exactly what Angela just said, I can type in any version of that, click here on notifications, and now I've got an article here. And like I said, it's like 3 bullets that I made last a lot longer than that, right? So there's the 3, but I can see this here. And the older I get, my eyes are just deteriorating. So if you really don't like it being in that tiny screen, click read more. You're going to get a pop-up version. It's going to look similar to what we've been looking at here too. And you can see that screen. And where you're now in is actually our community and our support center inside of our knowledge base. So I'm going to show you how to get here also, but the easiest way to search for what you're looking for is just to start typing in, you know, what you're looking for. I'm trying to run this report, or I'm trying to turn on those section bubbles. Just start typing and you'll get some links for insight there as well. So there's some help here. This little group of people will give you the access to the support and product feedback. So here's where you can go and submit a support request. So 2 links, and you can type in, fill out a few forms, and all of a sudden you can ask some of those questions that maybe Chris was referring to, and you're going to get some very quick feedback and insight into what's going on as we work through those tickets. You can also post products in the community. So I can click here, and that's going to load me up, and it's going to get me into our community. You can see the Astra Support Center here. I'm going to reference a couple of these resources in just a minute as we wrap up the training, but you'll see our knowledge base, Launchpad Learning, resource centers, and just the community. So where can you go and talk to other people about the insights, like I'd mentioned about how are you using the communications tool. That community resource is going to help you out there. The knowledge base is how we're going to get into those Ad Astra apps and find out information that we're looking for on specific questions that we may have. So you can get there one of many ways. I'm going to close that out here real quick. Get my advanced filtering out here. I could continue on and wrap up as we're looking at a few other things here. So there's the Astrobot and your links to your information. There's an export here. I told you those were going to pop up a couple places. So there's one there as well. And now we'll jump over into the Analyze tab. So we've saved the best for last here. I'll let you be the judge on if you think this is the best. There's so many things that I think are the best. But the Analyze tab is kind of a gateway into reporting. So if you really like, I mean, you're noticing that a lot of what we're doing inside of Monitor is individual course based, right? Lots of details around that individual course. But if you're responsible for all of the English courses, then I can come in here, use my handy dandy filter that I built, and I can take a look. I'll have to maybe pick the term. It's default. It remembers that I have the term selected, but I can see my countdown to the days to the start, the overall fill rate across all of whatever I have selected. So you could just leave that open and look at your entire institution if you wanted to. And then here I get a great visual on my high filling courses, my lower filling courses, and everything else that's on track. Well, on track in terms of filling between 25 and 85%. I think that's all relative to the time of year and the institution. But I can see those red courses there that are hitting that kind of notification line. And I get a quick list here of everything that's above 95%. I've also got a little table here that shows me everything that's got less than 10 enrollments. So a little different look than the enrollment ratio. We're just looking at sheer enrollment numbers. All of these kind of percentages and intervention percentages and numbers are driven off of Ad Astra and are working with, for decades with institutions. They're not yet customizable, but keep those enhancement requests coming because I know a lot of you will look at opportunities to cancel courses with less than 10 enrollments or less than 15 or less than 5, depending on institution. So keep the enhancement requests coming through that AstraBot. There is the quickest way to do that so that we can get some information on what you want to see within these applications. Here we have the same 2 modality screens, but now we're looking at all English courses, whereas before we were just looking at English 1301 or whatever you're filtered on for this screen. So you can see more colors started to present themselves as far as hybrid, online, on sync, online sync, HyFlex, and how we're tracking amongst all of that. Scroll down one more. And we get the seat counts and the section counts for, again, that group of English courses. So I can see my percentage of what am I offering seats wise and what am I offering sections wise for that distribution. So this has been really helpful as a lot of schools have been challenged with, okay, well, we'd like to see this percentage of online, this percentage of in-person moving forward. Certainly in some of our past terms, we saw that as well. And this is just a couple clicks and you can have that level of information available to you. So Analyze is sort of the gateway into the reporting world, allowing you to do a nice view of a grouping of courses, college department, that kind of thing. And I believe that brings us back to where we started. Chris, any other kind of questions?
No, I think you covered the basis of it. I think, to sum up some of the questions I did respond to, which I responded to all of them that were out there, but, once again, if you're, I think the trying to figure out the section bubbles was one thing that I think everyone's kind of struggled to find that at some point in time, especially the first time that you're getting in there and trying to use it. So once again, I've thrown the link of how to get there. If you go to aais.com/support, that gets you into a great place. That gets you into a spot that's our knowledge base, our community, as well as your client success consultant and support center. So you can log any sort of tickets or questions or feature feedback. That's one of the things I would say too, is that so many really good, and I said this earlier as a disclaimer because I knew I'd be typing it, and now that I've already typed it another 6 times, you guys have really good ideas. And like Angela said, we're always iterating, and we've got a really some good information from you today and others that have provided feedback in these sessions. And I think, we'll be able to provide that to our product experience team so that they, know where your heads are at. And I think, as I told people that asked, those questions in today's chat, like, hey, those are good ideas, and we want to be able to provide you what you need in a way that makes sense. So continue to bring those along. The other thing too, Angela, you might touch on, because I don't know that you did linked here, but as far as exporting any of the data, I know there's that icon there, and you may have touched on it earlier on, but I just wanted to highlight again, because we had a couple of questions later on about that particular piece.
Yep, there are really just a couple places you can export and monitor, and here's one of them. And that's going to export more than just this information. So try it out. It will export based on what you filtered in. But yeah, you can dump that into Excel and a couple other screens where you've got the option to take that into Excel and manipulate how you see fit.
Yep. Perfect.
Also a brand new thing, and then I realized I've got a couple other of the housekeeping things. I didn't hit on cross-listing. It's really kind of brand new, but just in case you see that popping up there for your institution, we're starting to do a lot of work around cross-listing. This identifies that this course is actually cross-listed with another course. You can click into this It gets you to the course, but at the section level, we didn't see this before because the course wasn't cross-listed. But for those that are cross-listed inside that section detail, I can pull that up, see what course is cross-listed, and get some aggregated information here at the top as well. So just something to kind of be on the lookout for those that have a really strong interest in cross-listing. We're starting to bring that into light and let you see and share that we've also identified that it's cross-listed, and here's that information for you as well.
That's awesome. One other thing that just popped up, a good question around trends around course modalities and those kinds of things. I mean, we only have 6 minutes, so I'll only take 2 of them, I suppose, but I could probably take 6 hours to talk about this. But, you know, I think absolutely. So the question it posed was, if Ad Astra Analytics reveals any trends, which course modalities are filling first. I think we are getting close to that point, right? I think a lot of institutions have historically not done all of the different things that they did in fall 20 in relation to modality and ways courses were being offered, or sections of those courses were even being offered. And so, you know, what I'm excited about is we've got a few terms under our belt. We'll have more moving forward, and now we're getting the data as it relates to all of those impressions made, or those snapshots and monitor, to where, you know, in the future, as schools are looking at analyzing, you know, which modalities are filling first, what does that look like? I absolutely think that we're going to be in a great position to give you really, really good data around that. So that's just one thing to note there that I wanted to throw out, and I'll answer it in the chat too. But I think it's just important for you guys to know that, like, this kind of data, especially the idea of modality and why you see it so front and center here, is because we know how important it is. We know how important it is to being able to plan an effective schedule to meet your students where they are. So that's just the one thing that I had there that I want to throw out, Angela, and you can have the other 4 minutes. I just said 2, so there you go. I did exactly what I was going to do. That's the first. Now I'll stop.
Perfect. Well, I've got to get all of our sponsors, you know.
Right, exactly. Nike and all those, whoever else. Yeah, exactly.
All of the people that have helped make this possible. All the resources that are out there for you.